Hello, my name is Branislav. I am the singer, guitar player of black and death metal band Bane. And today, thanks to Mass Movement and War PR, I'm gonna give you my top 10 records, those who influenced me the most, helped me shape myself as a musician, and the ones that I enjoy listening to the most. So we'll start off with a really obvious choice. Storm of the Lights Bane by the Swedish band called Dissection. A classic extreme metal record that is probably the biggest reason why I decided to pursue black death metal, and just a massive inspiration that I keep constantly getting from this record, no matter how many times I heard it before. I guess the reason why it shaped me so much as a musician, I'd have to say that it's just everything that came with it, starting from the artwork to the production to the songs, the riffs. Everything is just absolutely unique, and no matter how many bands after this got close to either the atmosphere or the riffs or anything like that, it was just never quite as capturing as this record. So yeah, Storm of the Lights Bane by Dissection would have to be one of, if not the most important record that helped me shape me as a musician. All right. The second one that I like to talk to about is Catatonia, The Great Cold Distance. This is, again, just a very unique sounding record that just nothing really quite like it. It's hard to say why I chose this record, because they have a lot of good ones out there. Possibly because it was maybe the first one that I've heard in its entirety. I remember hearing them way before, when they were still somewhat of a death doom metal band, but I think that this one definitely put a stamp in music in general. And yeah, just a very, very, again, unique sounding record, mainly because of the vocals, which are, I guess, somewhat untypical in metal. So yeah, The Great Cold Distance by Catatonia is definitely one of them. Next up would be obviously one of my all-time favorites, Far Beyond Driven by Pantera. This specific Pantera record I picked mostly because of the guitar tone and the production of the drums. I think that just, again, it's really an unmatched album in my opinion, in the metal genre. The guitar solos, the leads, and again the tone that was captured on this record really influenced me, specifically wanting to be a guitar player or a better guitar player. It's just one of those records where that there's not a filler track, which is why I prefer to listen to this one on tape, because I just don't ever skip any tracks when I listen to this record. And yeah, once again, just the production on this one is absolutely incredible, especially for the mid-90s. And I do believe that in a lot of ways this record not only influenced myself, but also the whole metal style in general, with the pointy kick drum and just the massive guitar tone. So yeah, Far Beyond Driven by Pantera, gotta love it. Next up is Dr. Feelgood by Motley Crue. Yeah, Motley Crue. I don't think I really need to go into details. Just a band that maybe you don't hear as much the influence in the music that I write. I think just the attitude and the overall style that this band had is just a really important and big movement that they had made in metal. So yeah, again, just a no filler record, hence the tape version. Motley Crue, why I like them so much is because it was never about the technicality or how good they were at playing their instruments. It's actually quite the contrary. I think that a lot of the Motley Crue fan base wasn't necessarily a musician or whatnot. I think that you don't need to be a musician per se or have any kind of musical knowledge, theory wise, to appreciate Motley Crue and be a Motley Crue fan and sing their songs, which is why I think as far as arena rock bands go, these guys would definitely be on the top of my list for sure. Dr. Feelgood, Motley Crue. Next up is Bloody Kisses by Typo Negative. Again, a band that absolutely sounds nothing like any other band. Obviously, we all have our own influences, but I think that Typo Negative are definitely one of the most unique bands that ever came up on the music scene in general, not only metal. And what's cool about Typo Negative is that this is one of the bands who, from one moment had like a hardcore sound, then went to have like this full doom sludge sound, and had somewhat of like a dark, gothic influences, with the keyboards and everything. So this record is really important for me because I think it showed that you can mix different influences and different genres all together and make it somewhat of your own. So yeah, without further ado, Bloody Kisses by Typo Negative, definitely one of my favorites. After that, we have one of the records which I've listened to probably the most, is the self-titled Whitesnake album. This is truly an all-killer, no-filler record. That it's actually, again, I have to say, the record that we've listened to the most while touring. It's just great band music, and yeah, the reason why I think I like this record so much is because it was recorded at a time, at an era where there wasn't so much editing and so much post-production. I think everything on this record sounds just so real and so raw and exactly the way it should be, because I think at the end of the day, everything, hard rock, metal, whatever, related should, I'm not saying, I only like stuff that isn't edited or whatever, but I think that, the way that these guys pull off a live show sounds immensely close to how it is recorded. So yeah, Whitesnake, self-titled, is definitely one of the most important records that shaped me as a musician. Still listen to it, I want to say, on a weekly basis. Next up, we have Host by Paradise Lost. Paradise Lost is one of the most influential bands for me personally, just because I think that it's a band who, having started in the late 80s and having put out 15 full-length records, it's clearly a band who, is possibly one of the hardest working ones in the industry, and I obviously can only admire the years and the effort that they have put out there. The reason why I took Host in particular is because even though I like all of their records, so from the early, death metal stages to this weird type of, synth pop phase, and then after that going into what I really believe, made Paradise Lost what they are as a band, it's because Host is, I think, a record where Paradise Lost pushed the furthest and still managed to keep the sound and a stamp of Paradise Lost, especially with Nick's vocals on this one. So yeah, again, I could have honestly picked maybe just about any Paradise Lost record that they put out, but yeah, Host I think is a record that really probably made them risk a lot of things, by will they keep their old fan base and whatnot. But in my opinion, they definitely managed to not only partially do that, but also get a whole new interest and audience in them. So Host by Paradise Lost, definitely one of my top 10 records of all time. Next up, we have Epitaph by Necrophagist. It was really hard to pick, just one or two maybe death metal records that would make it on this top 10 list, because I listen to death metal a lot, and it was a huge dilemma if I would go with another band and whatnot. But I took Epitaph by Necrophagist because I simply think that it's one of the most, I want to say, one of the records that made the biggest boom in the last 15-20 years in death metal. And even though it was released in 2004, it still sounds unique and very fresh. And I think that 99% of the technical death metal bands that came after this, even though they were maybe faster and maybe technically more demanding, I still think that these 8 songs capture the true essence of technical death metal. And the reason, again, why this is on my top 10 is because even though this is a very technical record with a lot of, weird time signatures and very, tough arpeggios and riffs in general, it still doesn't sound like a wall of noise, and you can actually whistle or sing a lot of the riffs on this record, and especially the guitar solos, which are simply fantastic. So yeah, without further ado, Epitaph by Necrophagist is definitely one of the most important records for me. Nearing the end, we have, which might come to somewhat of a surprise for you if you don't know me, but if you do, then obviously this is going to be very expected. Bad by Michael Jackson. I think that Michael was one of the most forward-thinking artists, and again, just nothing before or after that really ever came close to any of the stuff that he did, in my opinion. And again, it was hard to pick one record, so Bad was one that I guess I just like a lot of the tracks, if not all of them, that are on the record. But yeah, it's just again a record that was sounds as good as it probably did when it came out, and just a huge inspiration, to listen to somebody who had those kinds of ideas and arrangements and vocal harmonies so long ago, and even to this day sounds way better than, if I may say so, than a lot of the pop rock stuff that's out there. So yeah, Bad by Michael Jackson, can't go with that one. And last but most certainly not least on this list is Feel the Steel by Steel Panther. You know what? Steel Panther is, a lot of you might consider it as a joke, which to a certain extent they are. But I gotta tell you, Steel Panther live as well on recordings sounds way better than a lot of the bands I have seen and heard out there. And this is, again, just a all killer, no filler record. Hits like The Shocker, Eating Ain't Cheating. Yeah, I just, I just don't think that it could have left this one out of the top 10. Everything on it, once again, the vocals, the song structure, like the massive choruses. I think that Steel Panther really gave a kick to heavy metal in general as a genre with this record. And Feel the Steel was, you know, the first record that I heard from them, so that's why it's in my top 10. But yeah, just a massive Steel Panther fan. What can I say? And I hope that there will be many more of these kinds of records from them to come. So guys, thanks for listening. Once again, I'm Branislav. I am very happy to have participated in this top 10 series from massmovement.co.uk. And a shout out to Devar PR for hooking us up. So have a good day, and I'll see you guys soon.